Hello, it's Concord Wind. My album is up. It is up on YouTube. It looks like that. I Have Overcome, full album 2026. So if you're looking for it on TikTok, that's what the thumbnail looks like. If you're looking for it on TikTok, that's what I look for. It's got a unique thumbnail, unique to compared to the other platforms it's on. It actually says "I have overcome." Right there it is. It says "I have overcome." It's got the TikTok thing, so easy to find, very easy to find. On what does it look like on Rumble? On Rumble, that's what it looks like. So whether you're watching from Rumble, YouTube, or TikTok, the video is available. It might, I haven't checked, but it might be a lower quality on Rumble because I had to compress the video so that Rumble would actually accept the file. So it might be a lower quality on Rumble. I hope not, but if it is and it really bothers you, then just go to YouTube or TikTok, and it'll. I know YouTube and TikTok has the highest quality version, but Rumble, I'm not sure what the quality is like because it wouldn't accept the original file. I had to compress it, and I don't know what that did to the audio. The video looks fine, but the audio might be a little worse for quality. The album's awesome. You know how every album has typically every album usually has good songs, okay songs, and then some albums have bad songs, but this album has no bad songs, and 8 of the 9 songs are good, and one of them's okay. And we'll see if we have the same opinion about which one is okay. I won't reveal which one I think is just okay. But after listening to it over and over again, I've listened to this album over and over again, and one of the songs on there is just kind of okay, and it's not as good as the rest, but the rest are really good. And I didn't even realize, but have you guys heard of Die Antwoord? The South African rap group that is, I think they stopped making rap music. I don't know what, they made a Pikachu song or something. And anyways, it's interesting, the similarities between my style and the style of Die Antwoord. It's very interesting because it's a lot of EDM beats, rapping over EDM beats, and male and female, vocals, and this album has a very Die Antwoord style. And I'm not saying go listen to Die Antwoord; their lyrics are terrible and disgusting. But as far as the style goes, if you've listened to them, then this album shares a very similar style. Which is really interesting. And even in the past, when I've made songs over Pokemon beats. It's interesting that Die Antwoord has a Pikachu song or whatever, and Pokemon's been brought up in Die Antwoord's music sometimes, maybe, and I know in their music videos at least. So, yeah, it's just pretty cool, because I consider Die Antwoord to be one of the most talented, groups out there. So to see similarities between my music and them is really, really cool. It's really cool. Anyways, I prepared a passage of God's words, but I gotta go use the bathroom real quick, so I'll be right back. 1 second. All right, I'm back. Since you guys are hopefully going to be listening to the new album, my new album, I can't recommend enough that, the best way to listen to it is with the Crusher Evos. And you don't have to get this color, but if you were going to get the headphones, these are the headphones to get. They're amazing. You can get black Crusher Evos on eBay for like $80. If you don't care about color, but if you care about color, they're more expensive. I mean, these were like $217 or something like that. So these were expensive because I wanted this color. I wanted these limited edition. But you don't have to do that. You can just get some black ones for $80 and. But that's the best way, or with a nice system. If you've got a nice system in your car, although if your car has one of those systems where you can't hear the lyrics because the bass is so loud, that wouldn't be ideal because I want you to hear the lyrics. A lot of sound systems are kind of ridiculous because you can't really hear the music, you just hear the bass, and I think that's like absurd, But if you've got a nice sound system that you can hear the lyrics and you can hear the bass. I mean, and if you don't have a nice sound system, if you don't have nice headphones, and you don't have the money for those things, I totally understand. And it is what it is, God's arrangements, and so that just means you're not spoiled like I am, because the other day I took some regular, like, cheap headphones, not these. I took some, like, cheap headphones to the gym and was listening to some of my music, because I pretty much only listen to my own music now, because I'm just so happy with it all, and I really like it. I mean, it sounds good enough that, I don't need to listen to anything else, like, that's how good it is. And, I was using, like, some cheap headphones, and I was like, man, this is rough, because I'm so used to these, like the cheap headphones really sounded rough. But if you're not used to nice headphones, if you're not used to a nice sound system, then cheap headphones sound great. So you'll still enjoy the album that way, or even listening to it through your phone. I guess you can enjoy it that way too, whatever. All right, let's get into God's words. It's been 7 minutes already. God says, "It is certain beyond all doubt that God's sovereignty over people's fates is a positive thing, whether from the perspective of God's original intention in designing people's fates, or from the perspective of the results of people's fates produced by the heavenly rules and laws established by God. It should be said with absolute certainty that God's sovereignty over people's fates is a positive thing, not a negative one. If you have notions about this truth, you can seek the truth in God's words to resolve your notions. But you cannot say based on your notions and imaginings, people's fates under God's sovereignty should all be good and beneficial to them. Why do things end up so poorly for some people due to God's sovereignty? This shouldn't be God's sovereignty, right? You must never say such a thing. Such an outrageously rebellious and blasphemous statement must never come from your mouth. From today onward, you must accept and affirm the truth that people's fates are under God's sovereignty, and God's sovereignty is a positive thing. Amen. Do not doubt this. No matter how the fates of people that you see with your own eyes or that you experience conflicts with your notions, or even if you think they are inhumane, you should believe and affirm that God's sovereignty over people's fates is real and is a positive thing. This point cannot be doubted. Has this truth been fellowshipped clearly? Amen. This is very crucial. This is a very crucial issue in knowing God, and it's been resolved, right? Then let's end our fellowship here for today. Well, God's fellowship may be over, but I want to continue off of what God said. His fellowship's over for that chapter anyways. It's interesting. I was just talking about like not having enough money for nice headphones or whatever, and that falls under the category of God's sovereignty, so it connects. It's very interesting. And, and I don't understand why things happen. But I know God has the best intentions. That's my foundation. And just like I was suffering, not too long ago, I went through a couple of days of suffering. And, I stayed positive through it all because I understand that God has the best intentions, and his sovereignty is always a positive thing. So no matter what happens to us, it's a positive thing. Because, God's thoughts revolve around human beings, and everything he does is for mankind's benefit. And that's interesting. Like, people saying, well, I've seen things of God's sovereignty that aren't of man's benefit or whatever. And it's like, well, everything that happens is beneficial to us, in my view. Like, that's the way I see it, is that, like, when I'm suffering, I'm like, this suffering is beneficial for me. And it was, because it inspired me to write 2 songs or 3 songs. There was 3 songs, 3 really good songs that were inspired by my suffering. So that's how something good came out of my suffering. And so, everything's beneficial to us, whether we receive blessings or curses. It's all beneficial to us. Just like when Job suffered, the torments of Satan under God's sovereignty. That was beneficial to Job because it gave him the opportunity to bear testimony to God, bear testimony to his perfection and uprightness. And it gave him the opportunity to shame Satan and make Satan into a coward. And so Satan ran from Job with its tail between its legs because it saw the abominable, I'm not sure what the word is, just the human spirit that is so strong. It's so strong. And Job had such a strong human spirit. And one of the strongest, Job, really. So it's amazing what Job was able to accomplish. And if not for God's sovereignty and arrangements, we wouldn't have the story of Job. We wouldn't have the inspiration of Job's story. There's so many benefits to Job, to mankind, to everyone from God's sovereignty over Job's life. And, it's really amazing to think about that every single thing that happens is beneficial to us. It's really amazing. Just like I know my ministry, doesn't have much of an influence. And I pray to God, I'm like, God, if it is your will, please extend the influence of my ministry, and he never does. And, it's beneficial to me, and it's beneficial to it's beneficial to those who are, who watch my videos and everyone, because God's sovereignty is always beneficial to us. It's beneficial that he doesn't extend the influence of my ministry. I don't see how. I don't see why. Like in my notions, I think I asked the question, like, wouldn't God want the gospel to spread far and wide? And that's a notion of mine that doesn't take into consideration, maybe he doesn't want the gospel to spread far and wide by me. You know what I mean? Maybe he wants someone else to fill in that role of spreading the gospel far and wide. Maybe it's just not my role or my mission in life. Because remember, our roles and our missions in life are predetermined by God. Before we're even born, we have a mission in life. Before we're even born, we have a purpose in life. And every person will fulfill their mission. Every person will fulfill their purpose. Whether they want to or not, they will. Because God has the ultimate authority over everything. And, people will fulfill their purpose willingly or unwillingly, And I'm not sure exactly what, specifically my purpose is. I know, I have, a vague idea of my purpose, which is just to, spread the gospel. That's just kind of a vague, idea of my purpose. But, I don't know the details of my purpose. I don't know, how I'm supposed to spread the gospel, or if I'm supposed to extend the influence of my ministry somehow, or, I don't know the details. And, if God wanted me to know all the details of my purpose, he'd let me know. So since he hasn't let me know the details of my purpose, that means that it's beneficial to me that I don't know those details. Because if it was beneficial for me to know the details, he would definitely let me know. But since it's not beneficial for me to know the details, he doesn't let me know. He keeps it secret from me. Because God only reveals that which will benefit people in their purpose in life and their mission in life and their service to God and their salvation that they receive from God, things that benefit people in those ways. People, are, oh my goodness, I'm getting mixed up on my words. Things that align with God's will, progressing mankind in a direction that is positive. Those are the things God reveals. Those are the things God arranges. Those are the things God does. So remember, God's sovereignty is always positive, and that should motivate you. Like when you're suffering, when you're struggling, you should be like, well, this is all beneficial for me. God has the best intentions. That should be the foundation. Your foundation and your faith in God is that God holds sovereignty over everything. Everything that happens is positive, and everything that happens under God's sovereignty is positive, that is. Which, what isn't under God's sovereignty? So, that pretty much includes everything. There's very little that's not included in God's sovereignty. And then the third thing is that it is a benefit to you. And I guess the fourth thing is God has the best intentions. So that should be your foundation in your faith in God. That way you don't complain, because remember, a complaint is a permanent stain on your soul, and you should not complain. You should accept God's sovereignty, accept God's arrangements. That's what I do every single day. Whether I'm blessed one day or cursed another day, I accept it all from God. I accept what He gives to me. I accept what He takes away from me. And, that's my attitude, perspective, and foundation, and my faith in God is to accept God's arrangements, to submit to God like Job, Rather curse my own flesh than say a word against God. Because I consider God to be sacred, holy, and just, to complain against Him, that's a line I don't cross. Not only that, but God is lovely, righteous, humble, and holy, and so He's so beautiful and everything. I don't want to hurt Him. And I know He has the best intentions. So that's another reason I don't want to say a word against Him. Because I know it would be wrong. Because He always has the best intentions. And I haven't been perfect. Like when my Facebook got shut down, I did say a complaint against God, and I regretted it. But I learned from it. I learned, I really shouldn't jump to conclusions when something happens to me, because, I have to remember God has the best intentions. And just because I can't see what He's trying to accomplish in something, just because I can't see what He's trying to accomplish, just because something appears to be negative, I can't jump to conclusions, and I can't say a word against God. And I have to really ingrain that into my soul and into my heart. And it can be difficult when something, appears to be very negative and it happens to you. Or if you've been praying about something and you've been praying for a specific outcome. I've prayed for close to 10 years for God to help me overcome lust. And Facebook was primarily where my ministry used to be. And I didn't have a multi-platform ministry like I do now. And I was messaging women on Facebook because of my lust, and that's what got my Facebook shut down. And I've been praying for 10 years for God to resolve my lust. And so imagine the disappointment when my ministry was shut down because of my lust that I'd been praying for God to help me overcome for 10 years. And it's like He didn't help me. For 10 years, I had faith He would help me, and he not only didn't help me, but he let my ministry get shut down because of it. And I couldn't see the positive in that situation. And now I see God was answering that prayer by removing the temptation of Facebook. And I see that now. because like I'm not tempted to message women on TikTok, and you can't really message people on YouTube or Rumble. I don't know if it's just the colors, like blue and white, or I don't know what it is about Facebook that triggers me to make me want to message women. Like I feel safe, like I can message women on Facebook and get away with it. But like I don't feel safe on TikTok to message women. I don't it's not the same. I don't know why. But that temptation isn't there with TikTok. And there is a messaging feature on TikTok, and I just don't use it really. And it's very interesting how that works. Like there's not the temptation there. And so I'm able to, spread the gospel on TikTok, and it's very interesting. God's arrangements are very interesting. I mean, he's very wise, very wise. I don't know how he's able to figure things out the way he does, but he really understands everything, very well. He has a very good understanding of reality and the universe and everything. It's amazing. So anyways, yeah, that's it for this video. May God's will be done in your life, and make sure to check out my album if you haven't already. So anyways, goodbye.